Hey guys, what's up? Take a look at this here. We have two sentences. Both of these sentences are very similar. It has one tiny difference, however, right here. But if you look at the two corresponding pictures, this one for this and this one for this, these two pictures are quite different. If you look at the first picture, the guy has one injury in the leg. However, the kid in the bottom has a bunch of injuries. He looks beaten up. His forehead is beaten up, he's missing an eye, his arm is broken, and his knee is also busted. If each picture represents the meaning of the sentence, why is it that such a little difference can lead to this guy from having one injury to getting beaten up all over? This is what we're going to be learning about today. Let's say you wanted to talk about a cow, but you don't want to talk about just one cow. You want to talk about the whole herd. You want to talk about 5 cows. What would you do? You would add the letter S to the word cow. You would say cows, cows. This is what you'd call a noun plural. In English, there are a bunch of ways you can make noun plurals. You could add an S, like cows. You could change a vowel, like man to men, goose to geese. Or you could not change anything at all, like fish and deer. For example, I want to eat a fish today. That's singular. But if I said, there are many fish in the sea, I'm implying that I'm talking about more than one fish. I'm talking about many fish. There are many fish in the sea. There are bigger fish to fry. How would you know that the fish I'm talking about is not only one fish, but many fish when I say there are bigger fish to fry? You know from the context. And also another cue. For example, I said many fish in the sea. To sum it up, in English, one of the most common ways to indicate that a noun is plural is to change the noun somehow. Maybe by adding an S, maybe by changing the vowel. But sometimes you don't change anything at all, and you have to figure out based on the context. And that's the thing. In the German language, you'll be faced with more situations like this one, where you have to guess from the context. Let's move on to German. So in German, you can also show that you're talking about more than one noun by adding an S. For example, the singular is ein Hotel, a hotel. The plural is die Hotels, or the hotels in English. So you can add an S, but this only works on foreign words, usually words from English. For example, hotels and autos. For most German nouns, you wouldn't actually use this rule. Now let's look at this example. We have 2 more sentences and 2 more corresponding images. However, this one's a little funny. This one's das Messer, and it corresponds to this picture. And this one is die Messer, and it corresponds to this picture. Both mean the Messer. See, I put it in brackets here. Das means the, and die also means the. So both are the Messer. I think you can guess now what I'm talking about. That the word the has 2 different translations in German. One becomes das and one becomes die. And there's a difference between das and die because the das Messer has only 1 knife and the die Messer somehow has 4 knives. Let's take a look at this more clearly. This is cue number 2. Check the article. You know what an article is. Article is the word the. This is the article. This is the noun, and this is the article. When you translate the into German, you actually get 4 different words, and it depends on the gender. We talked about gender in a previous video. You can check that out. So when you translate the into German, you can get der, die, das, and die. All of these means the, so this means the. Die also means the. So does das, and so does die. The fact that these all mean the can help us identify whether or not the word is plural. This is something that doesn't exist in English. Let's check here on the singular part. We have the man. The translation is der Mann. So Mann is a masculine word. We are using der. We have the woman, and the translation is die Frau. You can guess what gender this is. And we have the result, das Ergebnis, and the knife, das Messer. When we go to the plural though, we find something interesting. Remember in English how goose turns into geese? We see the same change here, from man into Männer. So we have die Männer and Frau into Frauen, Ergebnis into Ergebnisse, and this is the one we should look at. So let's imagine we don't know the articles. Let's close the articles for now. If you look at this word here, could you guess that this was the plural version of man? You probably would, right? When you see that there's this one and there's this one, you can guess that, oh, this one has a bit of a change to it. This is probably a plural version of man. You can also guess it for Frauen and for Ergebnis. These are all second versions of these words. But then you see words like this one, Messer. You check the previous word and it's also Messer. There is no difference. If you didn't know about anything else, you would guess that, oh, this is Messer just like this one, so this is probably singular. But no, this is actually the plural version. The way you can tell is by looking at the article. You can see that this one is das Messer and this one is die Messer. You will see in German there are many words that you will find difficult to guess the gender. You can find, however, the gender from the article. Let's say you're reading a book. It's a book talking about knives, and you see the word Messer. Let's say you already know the gender of Messer, and it's neutral, right? When you see die Messer, you'll know that it's talking about multiple knives. And when you see the word das Messer with a das, you'll know that it's talking about the knife, one knife only. If you don't know the gender of the word, like originally, you wouldn't be able to tell, right? Because it could just be feminine. Like for example, you see die Frau here. Imagine if die Frau, the plural version of it was also die Frau. The method is really that you just have to know the gender of each word you're reading. Let's say that you're reading and there's this word that you think is kind of important on whether or not it is plural. For example, you're reading a novel and the difference between singular and plural is between the character being kind of injured to being beaten up all over because his wounds are plural. When you do feel like you need to find out the gender of the word, go to your dictionary and find the word. You can probably find the word based on either version. Even if you tried looking for Männer in your dictionary, you'd probably still end up finding Mann. To sum it up, in German, you can identify the plurality of the word by seeing whether or not there's an S on that noun. If it has an S, it could be plural. But this only works on foreign loanwords like hotels and autos. The next way is to check the article. You learn that the English article the has multiple translation in German based on its gender and its plurality. The word the can be translated into der, die, das, and die based on its gender, whether or not it's masculine, feminine, neuter, or maybe it's plural. You can probably find out whether or not the word is plural from the word itself, like man to Männer and Frau to Frauen, but sometimes you will find that the words you cannot guess just from looking at the word itself, and you have to look at the article. If you know the gender of the noun, you can check whether or not the noun you're reading is plural or singular. And that is it for today. Today's challenge: open your German language book. It can be any book, could be a novel, it could be a textbook. It could be downloaded from the internet or it could be a physical book, and choose a sentence in that book, any sentence. In that sentence, identify whether or not the nouns in it are singular or plural. That's it. See you guys.